Okay, greetings, family. I'm Reverend Dr. John E. Jackson, Sr., and I am the senior pastor of the Trinity United Church of Christ in Gary, Indiana, where we are not just another church, but we are a culturally conscious, Christ-centered church committed to the community. And I'm also here with Reverend Dr. Danielle Buhuro. She is our Director of African Biblical Studies at our congregation, but she also wears a number of hats, and one of them I want her to share from her expertise about helping us in this time of crisis, anxiety, pain, and even panic that some of us might be experiencing in this time. So Dr. Buhuro, tell the family a little bit about yourself.
Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, let me say, so good to see all of you all here virtually. Again, my name is Reverend Dr. Danielle Buhuro. I'm excited to be a member of Trinity United Church of Christ in Gary, Indiana, serving as Director of Biblical Studies at our favorite faithful church. I'm excited for this opportunity to just give some basic information about this pandemic that we currently find ourselves living in on today. I am, as Pastor Jackson said, I am also serving as a CPE supervisor for Advocate Healthcare. I'm at 3 Advocate hospitals: Advocate South Suburban, Advocate Trinity, and Advocate Christ Hospital. And so my job as a CPE supervisor is to train hospital chaplain interns and residents on how to provide interfaith spiritual care to persons who come into the hospital. And so this is, as our pastor said, a very trying time for globally around COVID-19. And so I'm here this afternoon just to share some useful strategies or interventions for how we as a family of faith can respond.
Please, go right ahead.
First and foremost, we want to, as our pastor has always mentioned, we want to invite everybody to please honor the requests from our public officials. We are being told, first and foremost, to stay in.
Yes.
That is not boundaries placed around us to keep us in. That is boundaries placed around us to keep us safe.
Yes.
And so it is very, very important that you please honor what our local governments are saying, as well as what our national government is saying about staying in. Why is staying in so important? Staying in is so important because of one vital reason that is often misunderstood and causes this pandemic to spread. This virus can last in one's body, meaning lay dormant in one's body from anywhere from 1 day to 14 days before it becomes active. And so before you experience any symptoms, you actually catch this virus, if you will, and it lays dormant in your body anywhere from 1 to 14 days before you have a symptom. What does that mean? Usually, we understand that symptoms reveal to us when there's a problem. The challenge, however, with COVID-19 is when the symptoms start to show, and I'll get into that momentarily about what the specific symptoms are. When the symptoms start to show, the virus has already taken over your body. And so this is why we see the spread of this disease occurring so rapidly, because oftentimes, because we don't feel sick, then we tend to move about our normal daily activities, including going outside and being around other people. And unfortunately, we are infecting other people in this 1 to 14 day time period that we are infected. We just don't know it because we're not demonstrating any symptoms. And so this is why you are encouraged by local and national governments and family of faith, clergy of faith, like our pastor, to please stay in the house. We are also observing that the symptoms look very much like other types of symptoms. And so it's easy now, once you finally start showing symptoms, to misdiagnose yourself. So number two, we want to highlight that the symptoms are three primary symptoms that we invite you to look for. Number one, first and foremost, is a fever. Fever is the number one symptom to the virus. Number two, that is very important to look for, is coughing. Coughing is the second symptom that is very observable and noticeable in our bodies. And number three is shortness of breath. Shortness of breath is the third symptom that tells us this person is infected with the virus. And so what makes this problematic is fevers followed by a cough, followed by shortness of breath, sometimes may feel like the flu, or may feel like one may just be having sinus concerns. And so we're asking that, again, if you notice any one of those three symptoms, then please, please, please immediately get to a doctor and take the test, take the test. This brings me to my third point. There are several ways to receive access to the test. You can go to any hospital and follow the directions of any particular hospital to receive the test. You can also contact the Illinois Department of Public Health or the state of Indiana Department of Public Health, and they will be also able to direct you for how to receive access to the test. You also want to go to any state-funded public hospital. So for example, here in Illinois, we have two state-funded public institutions, Cook County Hospital and Provident, or John Stroger Hospital in Provident. And so we want to invite you, please, 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 to get tested. Let me say a fourth dynamic that makes this virus difficult and why it is spreading rapidly is washing our hands.
Wow.
We are not washing our hands enough. We must wash our hands. It's recommended that you wash your hands at various times throughout the day, because the spread of this virus is through touching surfaces. So something as simple as me standing up to go outside and touch a doorknob, or touch a desk, or touch my car, or touch any type of surface is how the spread of this virus is also occurring. Did you know when I touch a surface and I'm infected by COVID-19, that surface remains infected for up to 3 days.
Wow.
72 hours. And so if anyone else who's not infected touches that surface that I touched within 3 days, this is how this virus is traveling and spreading. And so we want to invite people to know that washing hands is very, very important. No matter how many masks I wear to conceal my mouth and my nose, if I'm touching surfaces, then I'm just as impactful in infecting someone else. And so we want to ask our family, our community, to please be mindful of continuously washing hands.
Yes.
Unfortunately, we are experiencing high rates of death happening in various hospitals in Illinois, Indiana, and throughout the country. And this is very, very sad. Did you know? Let me give some details. Did you know many hospitals now, including Advocate Healthcare, are restricting visitation policies?
Right.
So what makes this difficult is I just had an incident this morning at a particular hospital that I'm working in right now, that I won't say the name of to honor confidentiality, where a particular woman died and her family could not come up to the hospital to see her. I can't begin to express to you
Right.
the
Right.
pain that is felt when
Right.
someone passes away and they cannot go to their loved one. The family cannot go to the loved one of the person who is deceased and visit them. This becomes a cultural disorienting dilemma.
Yeah.
What do I mean by that? In our African and African American context, we understand that there is a sacredness to honoring the body of the deceased. And oftentimes, when death occurs, it is our cultural practice that surviving relatives immediately go to the body and memorialize the body in community. And so this pandemic has caused us to have a cultural disorienting dilemma in that now we cannot commune and fellowship around the body. And this dynamic is causing some psychological trauma to many of our surviving family and friends. Also, we're discovering that now the country has passed policy now in light of COVID-19 that says whenever someone passes away now, there can be no gathering larger than 10 people at a funeral home. So we are recommending to persons that if your loved one unfortunately passes away as a result of complications due to COVID-19, that you do a small memorial service or cremation service of under 10 people. And then second, you choose to have a larger service, memorial service in particular, later on in the summer months after we pray that this virus has come to an end. And so now, can you imagine what we're saying in the field of chaplaincy is grief is on hold.
Right.
Usually, a funeral service allows persons to find somewhat of a surface immediate closure so that they can now begin the grief process now as they journey through the rest of their life. But unfortunately, because we're not able to provide persons with large gathering services, now it feels as if persons are in a perpetual state of grieving. Unable to find immediate closure. And so we're asking that persons be sensitive to that again and stay home and practice preventative measures such as washing your hands.
Well, let me, in the time we've got left, let me kind of segue, because in all that you just said, there are a number of pastors, people who pastor churches, who are pitting faith against science. And so in particular, the washing of hands is not that big of a deal, but there are some pastors who just think that we gotta gather in the church building because we've got faith. And could you speak to that? Because they're pitting faith against science, and I don't think that's necessary. But you go ahead and address.
Yes. I myself and several chaplains have heard this theological construct that is shared by several pastors today. And our response is this: if I can do a quick 5-minute, 10-minute Bible study, if you will. First and foremost, we direct persons to think about in the Old Testament. Again, let me say we're speaking specifically around the Christian denomination. In the Old Testament of the biblical text, the Torah, if you will, think about this in terms of the ark. Where was the ark? If you think about the Old Testament and the understanding of the ark, the children of Israel remained mobile, and the ark always remained mobile. And so in some sense, the church, as we understand it, was never in one distinct location, because the understanding was as the children of Israel traveled, so the ark traveled too. And what that symbolizes is we have traveling arks.
Ah.
We're called to be a people of faith who are not defined by a particular location, but we are people of faith who travel with the Ark of the Covenant amongst all of us at all times. So even though we may not be able to join together physically in one location, how do we begin to use digital media and digital platforms to still travel, if you will, understanding that we can move the Ark in whatever direction or way that the divine is calling us to move that Ark. Next, I'd also like for people to think about, and you probably haven't thought about this, but think about the Apostle Paul.
Right.
Now, I have my own personal convictions and challenges with many things that Apostle Paul said. However, for the sake of this conversation, there is a glimmer of insight or theological hope we could take from Apostle Paul.
Okay.
If you notice, Apostle Paul's ministry was digital. I venture to say that Apostle Paul was doing digital virtual ministry even during biblical days. It always amazes me how recently we've been talking about our inability to do digital ministry as far as church is concerned in our Christian, when we love to study the epistles of Paul, which in my theological imagination was nothing but a biblical social media. Every time Apostle Paul wrote an epistle or a letter, he would send this letter out to particular churches. They would read the letter and be ministered to. Paul never physically visited many of the churches that he ministered to through these epistles. He simply took a letter, wrote prolific ministry in this letter, and then mailed the letter out. And how do we begin to look at digital ministry theologically in that way? We could say we are present day Pauls or Paulos that are doing ministry in digital ways for our time, similar to what the Apostle Paul did. And so we are inviting persons of faith to think creatively about how we do ministry. A particular famous pastoral psychologist by the name of Lee H. Butler Jr., professor of psychology and theology at the Chicago Theological Seminary, suggests that crisis for African and African-American people is nothing new.
Right, right.
African enslavement was a global pandemic.
Yes,
for
it was.
many persons of
Yes,
African
it was.
And so Dr. Lee Butler suggests that crisis breeds, more than anything, a psychological shift. What is the psychological shift? He suggests that crisis creates rage in the African American being. And in order for the African American being to successfully navigate through this rage, one needs to embrace and move rage or shift rage to creativity. He suggests that creativity is what defines us during crisis. Creativity, we know, is an important Kwanzaa principle lifted up every year during Kwanzaa. We celebrate Kumbh. Kumbh means creativity. And so Dr. Butler suggests in every pandemic that any person of African descent had to face, they had to at some point unleash their creativity.
Wow.
Dr. Butler suggests that the key to understanding creativity is understanding that it is already within this African being.
Yes.
We have to unleash it. And so the question for our clergy and people of faith is, how do we release the creativity, the creative power, the essence of our creative being that's already inside of us into the wider atmosphere and vision new and exciting ways of doing ministry, even in the midst of a pandemic?
That's real. That's real good. That's real helpful. And so I want to kind of wrap it up. I really appreciate you taking out your time because I know you're busy right now. I know there's a lot going on and you're taking care of people. And so I just want to ask you for any closing remarks of encouragement. But I also want to mention, and you can mention the titles also, that not only are you a pastor, not only are you a theologian, not only are you a chaplain's chaplain, a trainer of chaplains, but you are an author, a published author. And so in your closing remark, tell us about your publications and how people can get a copy.
Thank you, Pastor Jackson. Please check out my new book called Spiritual Care in an Age of Black Lives Matter. Spiritual Care in an Age of Black Lives Matter. This is an anthology that features myself and wonderful contributors around how is it that we meet the not only religious, but the emotional, psychological, and social needs of persons of African descent in this current age of Black Lives Matter, right? And so I invite you to check that out. It's currently on Barnes & Noble. It's currently on Amazon. Check it out at your local bookstore. I thank you so much for your support in that.
You're very welcome. Any closing encouragement and remarks for us as we go through this pandemic and practicing the practices that you lifted up, recognizing, as Dr. Lee Butler has pointed out, that there is a genuine creativity within us that can help buffet us in these times. So any final words of encouragement?
It's always ironic to me, this new phrase that is being circulated online called social distancing. This phrase is ironic to me. It's ironic to me that there are some challenges with accepting this term. What's ironic to me is I love studying African enslavement, the period of African enslavement from 1619 to 1865 in these so-called United States of America, as my pastor likes to say. It's interesting to me when we think about social distancing, I can't help but wonder how my ancestors maintained community and relationship in response to the Austrian bloc. That was the first social distancing of people of African descent in these United States of America. There was something on the inside that caused our people to maintain relationship, even in the midst of social distancing that occurred for African Americans in this country. And my request, my ask, is that we tap into that. We decided long ago that we would still maintain connectedness and community, even in the midst of racist social distancing.
Yes.
So how do we begin to bring that essence into our being today? Maybe social distancing looks like I may be physically apart, but I can use digital media to maintain community and connectedness.
Yes.
Something huge now in the field of chaplaincy is telechaplaincy. This is where chaplains come to the hospital and physically use cell phones to call patients in their room and talk to patients in their room so that chaplains are not becoming infected by the virus.
Right.
And so we began to ask ourselves, how do we communicate and maintain community in the midst of physical social distancing? Social distancing may be around our inability to connect body to body, but social distancing does not impact our ability to connect spirit to spirit, heart to heart, mind to mind, emotion to emotion. And so I am inviting us, even though we cannot connect physically, to be creative and think about the ways that we can still connect spirit to spirit, heart to heart, emotion to emotion, psychology to psychology. I even venture to say more faithful, more deeper, more connectedness can be built that way, even in the midst of a lack of physical connection.
Wow, I could really listen to you all day. You have, you know, you just drop pearls of wisdom as you go along, and I really appreciate your passion because it comes through how much you love people, in particular the people of
Thank you.
African and want us to do better and be the best that we can. And so I thank you for that. I thank you for your service.
Thank you.
I thank you
Thank you.
for this moment that you have taken time. And so those of you, you can keep watching this moment that we have had that has been a majestic moment because we have been blessed with Reverend Dr. Danielle Buhuro. Again, I'm Reverend Dr. John E. Jackson Sr. I'm the senior pastor of Trinity United Church of Christ in Gary. You can check us out by YouTube. We have a YouTube page. We also have a Facebook page, Trinity United Church of Christ, Gary. You can call us at the number 219-944-0500. You can look at our website, TUCCGARY.org, and check us out that way. However, we've got a lot of mediums where you can check us out. We just want to be a blessing. That is our purpose. And that's what we're striving for. So thank you again. Thank you, Dr. Buhuro.
Thank you.
And
Thank you.
we'll continue on in the struggle.
Thank
Amen.
you.
God bless you. Okay. Let me get this right. Do you want to stop cloud recording? If yes, you receive an email notification.